Often people, when they think of Africa, they think of a continent of starvation. And yet the African diet is the most balanced in the world. Leafy vegetables from sweet potato leaves, cassava leaves, the grains, the sorghum, the fonio. And when you look at every single dish, it tells you a story.
You likely haven't had a meal from Senegal or Nigeria or any African country, but there's a growing movement to change that.
I walk into rooms all over the world and I ask, what's your favorite dish from Africa? And I get blank stares. We need to change the way people view our food and what makes it so special.
These chefs, farmers, and entrepreneurs aren't just offering an alternative cuisine. They're combining traditional farming methods and new technologies to increase crop yields, combat climate change, and ultimately lift up the African economy.
And if you choose ingredients that are having an impact on our planet, on your own health, you make a difference. And those ingredients oftentimes happen to come from Africa.
To solve the world's most pressing problems, we need to trust those closest to the challenge. These are the solutions that make our world a better place for everyone. This is Rethinking Possible.
I never planned to become a chef. In the early 90s, I was in New York City, needed to have a job. And the first that opened was a busboy position at a restaurant. New York City was exciting. It was the food capital of the world. It had so many different cuisines, but my cuisine was absent. So it became my mission of introducing the food of West Africa to the world. My restaurant in New York City is called Teranga. It's a fine casual West African cuisine. Food from Nigerians to Senegalese to Côte d'Ivoire. The traditional African crops have been looked down upon since the disruption of colonization came to Africa.
Before colonialism, farmers grew a diverse range of indigenous crops. But under colonial rule, they were forced to grow just a few export crops that mostly benefited the Europeans and struggled to grow in the African environment. The effects are still apparent today. The continent is one of the most food import-dependent regions.
Colonization came with some kind of a brainwashing, this mindset that made us think what comes from the West is best. I grew up in Dakar. You don't see any fonio products in Dakar. Fonio, millet, sorghum, our traditional crops, they're considered country people food, and you have to go into the countryside to see them.
The popularity of African food is on the rise around the world, and traditional crops from the continent are becoming more readily available, creating a perfect moment to support those who are the lifeblood of the African economy.
For farmers today, they're seeing lower and lower yields due to climate change. What we do at myAgro is our agronomists test and put together the most effective seeds and fertilizer and other tools to make farms climate resilient. Farmers will sign up for the package that they want to plant and invest in.
Parce que amoon na fi foo xam ne dama caa toll woon lool sama mbay mooma dimbale ba tuuti génne naa ci moom.
In 2022, we measured that myAgro farmers grew 176% more food, and that translated to $252 of additional net income. Having more food and then having extra income to do things like pay for school fees or pay for healthcare or build a house, this creates lasting change in the communities that we work in.
Traditions coupled with innovations allow farmers to grow naturally resilient crops that subvert climate change and set off an economic chain reaction. And that's just the first step to bringing African food to local communities and the world.
The average American or the average European doesn't know that they interact with African food on a daily basis. You ask the average American who loves coffee, where was coffee founded? They'll say Colombia. They don't know that 18 African countries produce some of the best coffee in the world. Now, if I can get Ethiopian coffee on a shelf in the US, it has a ripple effect. Every time you have that great cup of coffee, you stop thinking of Ethiopia as a place that needs your help, but as a place that's helping you. But beyond that, it creates jobs in Ethiopia. So you've put money in the pockets of Ethiopians. African Food Changemakers is a community committed to enabling entrepreneurs across Africa to build their businesses, scale, and trade.
The community expands across 38 countries, aimed at bringing African coffee, chocolate, traditional spices, grains, and other products to the world, and flip the script on how we think about the continent.
They're doing a lot around narrative changing to change the face of Africa from a hungry child to a successful female entrepreneur. Ace Foods is a company that I co-founded 13 years ago. We export West African fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices to retailers in Europe and the United States. We want to ensure that everyone has access to healthy diets that are affordable and accessible. And so for me, home is great food, but it's a history that I share with the world now and one that I'm most proud of.
So fonio, water is gone. Fonio is cooked, light and fluffy. I really wanted to show the versatility of fonio, the oldest cultivated grain in Africa. It adds economic opportunity for the farmers, but it also restores the environment south of the Sahara. The dish I prepared is a snapper served over fonio.
By trusting the knowledge of local farmers and giving them the support they need, Africa is finally beginning to reverse the effects of colonization, and in turn, pushing back against the effects of climate change. And if we get it right, Africa's food and agriculture market could increase by more than $700 million by 2030.
When you look at the food ecosystem around the world, there's a greater appreciation for diverse food, nutritious food. We believe our food fits nicely in that global food ecosystem.
You can argue that fire was mastered in Africa, and that's where cooking really begins. There's so much to win by just returning to where we came from. We can have not only a more delicious food every day, but we also have a chance to save our planet.